So, Casey, this camp any different for you than others? I mean, I'm not saying you've been here a long time, but you've been here a long time.
I have been here a long time. It's really similar, and I think I really enjoy camp actually. So we kind of transition out of training and lifting, and then it's all about football. It's been the same that way since I've been here, and especially since Coach Brown has been here, that I've really enjoyed camp and that football focus. So it feels the same as it's always been, that it's all about football, and I really enjoy that.
Do you appreciate where you started and where you are now? I mean, now Lou Groza's semi-finalist, watch list, whatever, and a guy who never even kicked in high school in football. Do you think about that, or is that just past?
I do think about it, and I'm very thankful for it. I think I've gotten to experience it, of course, from not playing high school football to being able to start and play and find some success. I don't think about it on the field while I'm kicking. I try to put performance and all of that kind of out of my mind, but I do enjoy it, and I'm very thankful for it kind of outside of the field. I give myself time to enjoy that, appreciate that, especially with my family.
Do you wish you'd kicked in high school in some way?
If I could go back, I would. I think that would relieve some of the form issues that I've had, some of the transition. I think it would have been easier to start even in ninth grade, but I guess there's a reason I didn't. And I'm thankful for, again, how it's worked out. But definitely kind of looking back, I think even in ninth grade, I would have said, you know what, I'm going to kick some footballs and see where this could go.
When your first kick on the field, when you went out there, what was not only going through your mind, but your body at that time? I mean,
so I remember it clearly. I think it was a Wednesday in October of 2017. So remember that clearly, that I went out there. We had to go to Dick's and buy football. So I was completely out of it. I had one of those old orange tees, not the kickoff tees, but the almost metal field goal tee, and brought it out. And I remember kicking at Legg Field, and I loved it. Loved it, kicked well, and that was probably out of complete beginner's luck because I had no idea what I was doing. So I just look at the ball and kick it. And I remember that very clearly, that I loved it and wanted to kick footballs.
And how about when you went out in a game?
That's maybe a little bit different. I almost blacked out because that was 2019 versus Baylor, which was the first field goal that I'd ever kicked. And I had a couple extra points and really just babied them in to make sure I made them. But I remember that first field goal roughly. Again, it was almost a blackout moment where you don't remember much, kind of remember jogging out on the field and then kicking.
You mentioned form. Like where you are now. I mean,
Yes.
You who knows? You might be kicking NFL next year.
Yes, and I'm very thankful for that kind of that transition. Even thinking from kicking off an old tee to kicking in games, and it's been growth and comfort, of course, to where I'm a little more relaxed now. Hopefully, yes.
You mentioned form. A lot of the kickers today, they go to academies. They've got Svengalis that are there, around them. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had none of that. Do you feel like you're having to catch up? Are you trying to absorb as much as you can? Who's giving you the techniques and things that you're using today?
So I do think it's been catch up for me, kind of with that form in mind, because ever since I got here, it's almost always been about making kicks. And I felt that pressure my true freshman year, and I feel that pressure today of I'm here to make kicks. So whatever form I have to use to make kicks, I'm going to use that form. And I think when you change your form, there's a process of you get worse before you get better. And I don't feel like I've had the time to do that since I've been here. So that's part of the maybe negative side of not having a coach early on in high school, to where I didn't have that time to build up a form, almost like you'd build a golf swing.
Flip it around. I mean, you basically go out there and kick the ball and try to kick it through the goalpost.
Yep.
Well, that's pretty simple.
Very
Do
simple.
you think sometimes maybe people make things a little more complicated than they need to be?
Absolutely, and I do that too. And my coaches have been on me about that, especially in team settings that they just say, just kick the ball, you know? So absolutely, people overcomplicate it. And definitely in team settings and in game settings, I just try to kick it in the post and don't think about anything else. And
Something to be said for that, isn't there?
yes, and that's something that I've learned up as I've grown, is that you make a lot more kicks not thinking about your form than when you're thinking about every little detail. So there absolutely is a side where you just have.
Maybe you benefited by not having all this
Yeah.
stuff to think about.
Yes, and I think mentally I absolutely have, to where, especially when I'm on the field in team settings and live field goals, that I'm just kicking. And I'm thankful for that. That's been my experience since I got here.
Hey, Casey, what was the Wednesday in October? What was the occasion for that to be out on lately?
So I've shared this before. I loved soccer, played soccer in high school. So I think it was an opposing team's parent or grandparent asked my mom if I had ever kicked footballs. And she said, no, he's never kicked. And then that was maybe the week before that October in 2017, that he had asked that question. So we thought, I had a couple of days off of school. We thought we might as well try it. Might as well go kick. So that was the background. And I really don't think I would have ever tried it if that parent wouldn't have asked my mom that. So
When you've been around this sport long enough now that, I mean, every position there's different nuances and things change. Quarterbacks get different arm angles. Defensive linemen learn different techniques. The game goes through different phases where one thing is cool and that's not, right? Is kicking still kicking? Like, does it change at all? Are there new things that you do in kicking?
I wouldn't say I don't see it evolving almost like the game. And I think there absolutely is a simple side to it, to where you just kick it through the posts. And I like that. And I think the simplicity of it is really cool. But also there's absolutely ways to get better. And I think the mental side of kicking is something that I've grown in a lot, of thinking that maybe even form-wise or what you do with your body, that there are limits to that. But the mental side of kicking is something that, and sports psychology, maybe that side is something that I've seen growth in myself, and something that can continue to grow.
That was kicking. How about tackling?
So I've only made the one career tackle, and that was my first ever kickoff. So I'd honestly like to keep it that way. So
Casey, the sports psychology stuff, is that more reaction or preparation?
it's preparation, and I try to really focus on that. And I think it's probably the most important aspect of making field goals is the mental side of it, to make sure that you're prepared to deal with the pressure of kicking, because I think that's the hardest part to overcome, is the real pressure you face when you're out there, and to be able to overcome that and trust whatever your process is. That's almost all mental preparation.
The reaction stuff is, once it happens, it's over. You can't redo it.
Yes, and there's not a ton of reaction. Snapper will snap it, holder will hold it, and so that's the only reaction. Other than that, it's all preparation.
In response to the outcome, right?
Yes, no, I try to completely ignore the outcome, which is really hard, and I struggle with it. I've struggled with it since I started kicking, but I try to completely ignore what happens as soon as the ball leaves my foot.
Have you worked with a psychologist at all, or?
So we have a team psychologist now, Dr. Adrian, and he's worked with us. He's done some mindfulness before games. So I enjoy spending time with him. And then also I do some on the side, just reading books. I'm reading one now called Mind Gym. And I've read it since middle school. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And
Reader, huh?
I've read it before. There we go. There we go. But so I try to read that before the season, and it really helps me prepare.
You're a thorough reader. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're around other kickers and knowing your background and they're talking about whatever and you're going, what in the hell are they talking about?
So I've studied it a lot. So I wouldn't necessarily say that. It's more of a how in the world do I get my swing to do that is more of the problem. So I've studied, I've watched a ton of film. So I know the right way to kick, but I struggle with the making my swing do that.
And you just go back and just kick it through the goalpost.
That's it. Yep. That's what I try to do.
Going back to your mental preparation, is there a routine you have? Is there something that you try and do just to kind of get in the same mindset every single game that you do every time?
Yes, and it is the same every time in practice and games. So my first objective is to deal with the pressure, and there's real pressure, and I don't want to ignore that about kicking. Of games are won and lost by kicking, and that brings pressure with it. And I deal with that, and I deal with that through faith and prayer. So that's a part of my response and a part of my preparation is that. So that's how I deal with pressure. And then every time I take my steps back, I'll deal with that pressure, and then I'll remind myself of my three main things in my kick, which is stand tall, stay smooth, and swing to the target. And that's all I do. Like every time, that's what I do. And if it goes in, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I trust that process. So that's every kick.
Told you that. Taught you that. Those three things.
That is, I've developed it with coaches, kind of just seeing when I'm kicking well, those are the things that I'm doing is
Stay smooth, swing through the target.
yes. So I have a tendency to really crunch on my field goals, and that's why I stand tall. If I swing too hard, I'll shank the ball, and then swing into my target. I think just makes sense. So those have just been developed kind of over the years of kicking. So when I'm making field goals, those are the things that I'm doing.
Do you play golf?
I do.
Seems like a lot of kickers play golf. There's a lot of similarities between kicking a ball and swinging and hitting a ball.
Yes. I'm not very good though.
Not very good.
I'm not very good.
Kicker than golfer.
I would say so.
West Virginia kid, have you thought about what this first game's going to be like?
Yes, I have. And I think it goes back to me because I actually was at the 2007 Pitt game. So I was a 7-year-old, and it's honestly still vivid to me. Like I remember leaving that game with my family and people throwing rocks at our car. Like I remember how emotional people were about it. And I was 7, and I remember that. And I remember it being important to me. And so that's what I'm coming into it with, is kind of that remembrance of how important it is to the people of West Virginia. So
I understand Bill Krlavich came and spoke to you guys.
Yes.
What were some of the takeaways from hearing him talk about the Pitt game?
he pumped us up. It was great to hear him. It was great to hear him. And he's experienced so many of the games, and being able to hear his history with the games and how many of them he won, it was really cool to hear him. We all appreciated it. He did a great job. So I joked with him. I was saying that he needed to come speak to us like 30 minutes before the game or 15 minutes before the game, right before we went out.
Okay, Casey, thank you.